10%. In the early 1960s, roughly 10% of Americans said they'd be upset if their son or daughter married someone from the other political party. Today, it's a majority. Depending on the survey, somewhere around half or more. That's the shift we're chasing tonight. I'm Greta, and I've spent a lot of years trying to keep a messy story clear enough that you can actually follow the thread. So hold me to that.
I'm Caleb, and I want to flag one thing about that 10% number before we fall in love with it. The survey wording changed over the decades, so the cleanest comparison people cite is a little rougher than it sounds. The direction is real. The precise gap, I'd hedge.
And already we are arguing about the first number. I love it. I'm Hassan. I once spent an entire Thanksgiving watching two uncles who agree on almost everything nearly come to blows over a highway bypass. So when someone tells me politics is now personal, I don't need a chart. I've eaten the turkey.
But the chart backs up the turkey. That's the thing.
It mostly does. What Hassan's uncles had was a local fight. What changed nationally is that the two teams stopped overlapping.
And notice the domain of that question. It's not, would you be upset if your kid voted differently? It's marriage, family, the most intimate room in the house.
Which tells you the divide has migrated out of the voting booth and into the dinner table. That's the whole reason the marriage question is such a good thermometer. It measures where the line has crept to.
Okay, but wait, slow down for me. When you say pulled apart, what is actually moving? Because the way people talk, you'd think everyone woke up with wildly extreme opinions overnight.
Good, because that's the first myth. On a lot of specific policy questions, the average American hasn't lurched to the edges nearly as much as you'd guess. What changed more dramatically is sorting.
Which is a beautiful word for something very simple. Think of it like, imagine a deck of cards where the red and black were shuffled together. For most of the 20th century, the parties were shuffled decks.
Meaning what, concretely?
Meaning there were conservative Democrats and liberal Republicans, and lots of them. A Southern Democrat could be to the right of a Northeastern Republican. The label on your card didn't tell you the color.
And now it does. The single best documented change is that party and ideology lined up. If I know you call yourself a conservative, I can now predict your party with accuracy that would have been almost useless in 1970.
Give me a face for the extinct species, though. What did a liberal Republican actually look like?
Think of the moderate Northeastern Republicans of the mid-century. Pro-business, but comfortable with a fair amount of government, sometimes to the left of Southern Democrats on race. And the mirror image, Southern Democrats who were economically populist, but deeply conservative on civil rights. Both of those creatures are nearly gone from Congress now.
So the opinions didn't necessarily get crazier. They got organized.
That's it. The clusters got tidy, and tidy clusters are easier to hate.
That's the whole episode. We can go home.
No, because now I want to know why the deck got sorted. Somebody shuffled it apart. Who?
The biggest single engine is the South. For most of the century after the Civil War, the American South was solidly Democratic. The solid South. Republicans barely existed there in some places.
The party of Lincoln. Unwelcome in the South. People forget that completely.
Right. And then civil rights blows the arrangement apart. Through the 1960s, as the National Democratic Party became the party of civil rights legislation, conservative white Southerners started drifting, first at the presidential level, then slowly, over decades, all the way down the ballot.
And I want to stress the slowly, because this is where people oversimplify. It's tempting to say one law passed and the South flipped overnight. It didn't.
How long are we talking?
A generation. The presidential switch shows up faster, but Southern state houses and local offices stayed Democratic well into the 80s and 90s. It's a slow migration, not a lightning strike.
Why the lag, though? If the top of the ballot flips, why does the courthouse stay put?
Incumbency and habit, mostly. A local sheriff or a state house veteran had a personal brand, a name people trusted, and a machine of favors. You'd vote for the Republican for president and then walk right down the ballot and re-elect your Democratic county commissioner because he fixed the road by your house. It takes a generation of retirements for the labels to catch up to the sentiment.
And there's a genuine debate here that I don't want to flatten. How much of that Southern realignment was driven by race and civil rights versus economics, the South getting richer, suburbanizing, becoming more like the rest of the country?
Steelmen both for me. Give me the honest version of each.
Sure, the race-centered account. The timing tracks civil rights almost too neatly, and the racial attitudes of Southern white voters predict the switch strongly. The economic account. The South industrialized. A business-friendly Republican message landed on its own merits, and younger generations moved right for reasons that weren't only about race.
And the honest scholarly answer is
both, weighted differently by different serious researchers. It's not one clean cause.
See, I appreciate that, because my instinct is always to grab the vivid story, the dramatic flip, and the vivid story is usually missing 3/4 of the picture.
But the vivid story is how people remember it, which matters too, right? The myth does political work, even when it's incomplete.
Now that I'll drink to. Here's the question nobody can stop me from asking. Who benefits? Somewhere in all this, somebody profits from the two teams hating each other. Point me at them.
All right, incentives. Start with primaries. In a lot of congressional districts, the general election is basically decided. The district is so lopsided that whoever wins the party primary wins the seat.
And who votes in primaries?
A small, motivated, more ideologically committed slice of the electorate. So the real threat to a sitting politician isn't losing to the other party. It's getting primaried from their own flank.
So the incentive is to never ever look moderate. Moderation is the thing that gets you killed in a primary.
In a safe seat, compromise can be a liability rather than an asset. That's the machine.
And the turnout in those primaries is what? A fraction of the fraction?
Often small. In a lot of primaries, you're talking about a modest share of eligible voters actually showing up, and the ones who do tend to be the most committed partisans. So a candidate is effectively auditioning for the most fired-up sliver of one party, and that sliver rewards purity, not deal-making.
So you're punished by the very people most likely to show up. The math does the radicalizing for you.
Now, I want to be careful because everyone's favorite villain here is gerrymandering, the drawing of weird district shapes to lock in one party.
The salamander-shaped districts, that's literally where the word comes from, yes? Governor Jerry, a district shaped like a salamander.
Early 1800s, exactly. So this is not a new sin. But here's the thing the research keeps finding. Gerrymandering is real, and it matters for who holds power, but it's probably a smaller driver of polarization itself than people assume.
Wait, why? That's counterintuitive. Explain that.
Because a big chunk of the sorting is geographic and self-inflicted. People physically moved. Liberals clustered in dense cities. Conservatives spread into exurbs in rural areas. You can draw perfectly fair, tidy districts and still get a wildly lopsided map because the people are already sorted on the ground.
You can't gerrymander your way out of the fact that a downtown precinct votes 90-10 one way and a rural county votes 80-20 the other.
So the map is partly drawn by politicians and partly drawn by moving vans.
That's a good line, yes.
And the tail, if I'm following you, is the Senate. You can't gerrymander a state. The borders are fixed. They were drawn centuries ago.
Exactly right. And it's a sharp test. Senate seats are whole states, so no clever map drawing can carve them up. And yet, Senate politics has polarized right alongside the House. That's a strong hint that something bigger than district lines is at work.
And I'd add the honest counterview. Some serious people argue we lean too hard on the people just sorted themselves story because it's comfortable. It lets the map drawers off the hook. In specific states, deliberate redistricting clearly did entrench one party's advantage, so I don't want to wave gerrymandering away entirely.
Both things at once again.
It's always both things at once, Hassan. Welcome to studying humans.
Here's where I think the story gets genuinely important, and it's the piece people miss. There are really two different things we call polarization.
Okay, name them.
One is ideological polarization, how far apart your actual policy positions are. The other is affective polarization, how you feel about the other side, how much you dislike them, distrust them, don't want them near your family.
And the striking finding is that the feeling has grown faster and further than the actual policy distance.
Say that again, because that's strange. We hate each other more than we actually disagree?
Roughly, yes. You can find people who are quite close on a given policy who nonetheless describe the other party in genuinely hostile terms. The animosity has outrun the disagreement.
Honestly, that's a little chilling. Why would that happen? If I don't even disagree with you that much, why do I loathe you?
A few mechanisms, and I'd hold them loosely. One, identity. When party lines up with religion, region, race, lifestyle, the other side isn't just wrong about taxes, they feel like a different kind of person. Party becomes a mega-identity.
It stops being, I think you're mistaken, and becomes, you're not my people.
The uncles at Thanksgiving. It was never really about the bypass.
It was never about the bypass.
And there's a second wrinkle. A lot of what people believe about the other side is just wrong. When you ask partisans to estimate what the other party is like, they wildly overestimate how extreme, how numerous the outliers are.
So, I'm not even hating the real you. I'm hating a cartoon of you I built in my head.
And the cartoon is angrier and stranger than the actual person. Correct the caricature, and some of the hostility deflates.
And where does the caricature come from? Which brings us right back to Hassan's favorite question, incentives. A media ecosystem and a set of political actors that discovered outrage is engaging. Fear of the other side is a fantastic fundraising tool and a fantastic ratings tool.
Follow the money, and it leads to my inbox screaming that the Republic ends on Tuesday unless I give $19.
You've read the emails.
I've read all the emails, my friend. Both sides. They have the same punctuation.
I want to push on something, though, because we keep implying there was this harmonious past, and I don't fully buy it.
Good. Push.
The mid-20th century consensus everyone gets misty about, the bipartisan, hold hands across the aisle era, a lot of that agreement existed because huge groups were shut out of the conversation entirely. It's easy for the two parties to get along when neither of them is fighting over civil rights because that fight is being suppressed.
Oof, so the golden age was partly golden because a lot of people weren't allowed at the table.
That's the uncomfortable version, yes. Some political scientists have argued the low conflict period was the historical exception, not the norm, and that it rested on excluding contested questions.
I'd sign on to that with one caveat. Conflict has always been with us. The 1800s had duels, a caning on the Senate floor, and eventually a civil war. So we used to be nice is mostly a myth.
A senator was beaten with a cane on the floor of the Senate. People really do forget the founding generations were vicious to each other.
Vicious. Newspapers back then were openly partisan mouthpieces. They'd print things about a sitting president that would make a modern cable host blush. Neutral journalism as an ideal is actually the recent invention, not the partisan brawling.
That reorders my whole mental timeline. I always assumed the nastiness was the new thing, and the calm was the default.
The calm was the anomaly. And the caveat is, the specific texture now is unusual. The tight sorting, the nationalization, the way local elections now turn on national identity, that combination is genuinely newer.
So it's not that conflict is new. It's that conflict used to be scattered, and now it's all pointing the same direction, aligned.
That's a really nice way to put it. It used to be that your disagreements cross-cut. You and I might fight about the union, but agree about the church. Fight about the church, but agree about the school board.
And all those crossing lines, they stitch a society together. If I need you on the school board, I can't fully write you off over the union.
And when all the lines collapse onto one line, party, the stitching comes out. Every disagreement reinforces the same divide instead of cutting across it.
That's the part that actually worries me. Not the shouting, the unstitching. So let me play the hard skeptic for a second, because Caleb's been hedging all night, and now he's got me doing it. How much of this do we actually know versus tell ourselves?
I've infected you. Honest answer, the sorting, we know well. The alignment of party and ideology is about as solid as social science gets. The rise in affective polarization, the feeling side, also well documented across multiple measures.
The shakier part is causation. Why?
Exactly. Everyone has a favorite villain. Cable news, social media, talk radio, gerrymandering, the money in primaries. And the honest position is these are tangled together and hard to isolate.
Give me the social media one, because everybody's certain about that one, and certainty makes me nervous.
You should be nervous. The intuitive story, social media radicalizes everyone, runs into an awkward fact. In some studies, affective polarization rose fastest among the oldest Americans, who use social media least.
Wait, the opposite of what I'd assume.
Which doesn't clear social media. It clearly does something, and it plausibly amplifies. But it can't be the whole engine if the trend predates it and shows up strongest where it's used least.
And the trend predates it by how much?
The upward creep in partisan animosity is visible well before the smartphone era. You can see it building through the 80s and 90s, before anyone had a feed to scroll. So the platforms may have poured gasoline, but the fire was already lit.
So the confident hot take, it's all the phones. The data won't quite let you have it.
The data makes you eat a more boring meal. Multiple causes, different weights, honest uncertainty on the mix.
And I actually find that comforting, weirdly, because if there's no single villain, there's also no single thing that broke that can never be fixed. It's a set of dials, not a switch.
That's a genuinely nicer way to feel about it than I walked in with. I came in ready to blame something. You've taken my villain away.
I'm sorry. Here, you can keep the fundraising emails.
I'll take the emails.
There's one comparison I think reframes the whole thing. Other wealthy democracies have polarized too. This isn't uniquely American. But America has features that make the sorting bite harder.
Like the two-party structure itself.
Right. In a system with 5 or 6 parties, your identity can't collapse onto a single us versus them line. There are too many teams, and coalitions have to form and reform. 2 teams is the most polarizing possible number.
Because with 2, every issue becomes you or me. There's no third door.
And the American calendar keeps you permanently at war. Somewhere there's always an election in the next 18 months, so the campaign never really ends.
There's no off-season. My football team gets an off-season. American politics doesn't.
The perpetual campaign. That's a structural feature, not a character flaw in the voters.
And in those multi-party systems, when nobody wins outright, they are forced to sit down and build a coalition, yes? You literally cannot govern alone.
In many of them, yes. To form a government, you often have to strike a deal with a party you spent the campaign attacking. That structural need to compromise puts a ceiling on how total the hatred can get. You might be governing with these people next month.
Whereas in a two-party winner-take-all system, Cooperating with the enemy buys you nothing and costs you a primary.
And I think that's the note I keep wanting to land on. A lot of this is structure, not that people got worse.
That's important to me, actually, because the lazy version of this story is people used to be decent and now they're not. And everything we've said tonight cuts against that.
The people are about the same. The arrangement around them changed. The incentives, the sorting, the collapse of the cross-cutting lines.
Change the arrangement and you might change the behavior without needing everyone to suddenly become saints.
So let me try to pull the thread tight, because I promised I would. What do we actually know?
We know the party's sorted. Ideology and party lined up over the last 50 years, largely kicked off by the Southern realignment around civil rights, playing out slowly over a generation.
We know the feeling. The dislike, the distrust, grew even faster than the actual policy disagreement. Effective polarization outran the ideological kind.
And we know the cross-cutting ties, the ones that used to stitch opponents together, collapsed onto a single line. Everything now points the same way.
And we know structure matters. 2 parties, safe seats decided in primaries, a campaign that never ends. Not villains, machinery.
And what don't we know? Say the honest thing again.
The exact recipe, how much is media versus geography versus the primary system versus money? Everyone's confident. The evidence is humbler than the confidence.
You know what I'm taking away? I came in wanting a monster, one clean bad guy. And instead, I got a room full of ordinary machinery, all pointing the same direction. That's less satisfying and, I think, more true.
And more hopeful in a strange way. Machinery can be redesigned, you can change how districts are drawn, how primaries run, how campaigns are funded. Those are dials.
With the honest caveat that nobody's proven which dial does the most, but yes, it's a set of choices, not a doom.
And it means that 2 uncles at Thanksgiving aren't monsters either. They're 2 men who got handed a single dividing line and told everything sits on one side of it or the other.
When really the bypass was just a bypass.
I'm going to call them, actually.
Report back.
That's our episode. We chased one number, 10% to a majority. And what we found underneath it wasn't a nation that got meaner. It was a nation that got sorted until every line pointed the same way. Thanks for thinking it through with us.
This episode was generated with AI by Demades.